Jorge Franco, please.
Okay, good evening. I remember that no longer than 10 to 15 years ago, it was quite complicated to find any title in Spanish in the United States bookstores. Nevertheless, today, when I walk through some of the most important bookstores, I realize that the amount of titles in Spanish has increased in the bookshelves. And I had wondered if there has always been a considerable Spanish-speaking population in the United States, why only until the last years the publishing market in Spanish has come to fill this emptiness. This fact takes me to another different questions. Was it a market issue? A Hispanic reader's lack of motivation? Has reading lost interest too? Why the demand has grown in the recent years? Unquestionably, the lack of books implies a low interest in reading, although I'm afraid that much of the persistent interest of the Spanish readers in the USA led the great bookstores to fill little by little its bookshelves with books written in Spanish. I also believe that the change of attitude of publishing houses in Spain and Latin America has had direct consequences on the increasing of reading books in Spanish in the United States. The book market in Latin America moved to a new dynamic. I don't know whether this new dynamic is good or bad, but the book nowadays is being treated as a consumption article meant not only for a cultural enrichment, but also for the entertainment business. Luckily, books have been removed from their gray, stiff, and limited scenery, and now they can be found in festivals, in advertising campaigns and promotions. They shake the market with their hated bestsellers list, and the modern publishing houses have given more joy to the book, and they are conscious that all means are suitable for the promotion of a book. And this country, with millions and millions of Spanish-speaking inhabitants, was not going to be an exception. For sure, buying books is not included in the great basic necessities of those who have arrived as immigrants to the United States. Nevertheless, everyone who arrives to this country keeps in his thought and in his heart an unbreakable bond with his original culture. And this need takes the immigrant to look for ways of keeping in touch with the countries they have left. Consequently, immigrants have looked for their roots through music, television, and also literature. And besides this search, there were also innovators who made the United States the cultural scenery for their own creations. Through time, they have created Latin music made in the United States. They have been broadcasting Latin television and reading books here in the United States, and recently, a new stream can be found. A high-quality literature with Latin American roots written in English by the descendants of immigrants for whom English is their first language. Although I wonder if this stream can be considered Latin American literature or American literature, since it's not written in our language, despite of names, last names, and words in Spanish. Latin America's literature shows then three types of authors that can be found in the bookstores here, with books that tell stories related to our culture. Authors who live in their own Latin American countries, writers who have arrived as immigrants or as well as travelers, and authors of Latin ancestry who write and publish in English. I must say that any one of these types of writing has also found big obstacles for being acknowledged not only here, but also in other foreign countries. Although the magical realism opened big doors to Latin American writing in the world and has introduced our more important authors with great acceptance and fascination, our exotic literature, including magic realism, has created a label that has become a barrier when we try to introduce the new Latin American writing, in which readers cannot find jungles, tropical fruits, flying grandmothers, or immortal dictators. The new Latin American writing has led a hard fight in order to remove itself from its exotic stereotype. and has tried to show its new voice, its new style, with stories and subjects closer to the current events of the contemporary world, closer to the great cities, but of course always tinted with the shades of each Latin American country. However, the very important thing is the presence in this country of a culture, no matter if it is written in English or Spanish. The Latin American immigrants know the weight of their own culture, and they know the importance of preserving it. They wish to save their culture from time and distance keeps them connected to their cultural expressions, and here it's when books written in Spanish become protagonists in foreign countries and languages. At the same time, the big American cities have become multicultural, exciting, and encouraging places for artistic creation. And if some years ago the European cities were the places where many of literary stories were developed, even in many of the Latin American books, nowadays cities like New York or Los Angeles have replaced the old European cities as literary scenery. But sadly, in the real world, big cities and countries are building up physical borders in order to isolate themselves. In opposition, books have always taken the cities and countries as open territories for all human beings. That's why I'm convinced that there is no better way to travel through cultures and countries than reading. Thank you.